Okay, we are going to walk through Lesson 6 in Code.org's Unit 3 in the Computer Science Discoveries curriculum for 23-24. So we're just going to jump right in. This one's over random numbers. So first level, it wants you to predict what's going to happen. We have a background that's going to be drawn. It's got a color of tomato, so I'm assuming it's going to be a shade of red. We then fill orange, and we have an ellipse. So we should have an orange circle over a kind of tomato background. Now, for our x coordinate, we have random number 200 to 400. So to kind of make your prediction, it looks like it's going to draw what we said, and the x location is going to be somewhere on the right side of the screen. So I'm going to click run, and there it is. Now what you'll notice if you reset and run again, it's in a different position. And each time you do that, it might be slightly moved or a little bit more dramatically moved. So what this random number does is we can specify a range, and then this will assign a value between the minimum and the maximum value that we specify. Okay, level 2. I do need to start over with my version history to make sure I see what you see. All right, so we have a new block, so we're finally outside of just drawing, so we can now have a math block, and random numbers, the one piece of code we have so far. It's kind of explaining what's going on. So it wants us to change the numbers inside random number, so the ellipse can appear anywhere horizontally on the screen. Okay, so right now it's just going to be on the right side. So to do that, we're going to change it to 0, 400. And now it can go anywhere left or right on the screen, okay? Because our screen is 400 pixels wide, that's why we do 0 to 400. All right, level 3. All right, we now want to add a random number for the Y location. So if we want it to truly be able to go anywhere, we can go to Math, drag out the random number block for our Y location. And again, we could give it a 0 to 400 range because our XY coordinate grid, and if we turn that on, it goes to 400, 400, and 0, 0, so anything in between. And now when we run it, the orange ball could be anywhere on the screen. Okay, we are revisiting that little smiley face we saw in lesson 5 when we learned about variables, and we had that eye size. So we're kind of going back to that. It says make the eyes appear at random sizes, drag out a random number, and put it on the right side of the. So what we're going to do, update the parameters of the random number block so the eyes appear both big and small. So what that means, instead of a set value for the eye size of 27, we're going to give it a random number. Now, because the eyes have a width and height of the variable eye size, whatever the random number is, that same number will be applied to the width and height of both circles. So we want to have large eyes to small eyes. So I would say 10 is probably as small as we want to get, and maybe 100 is as large as we want to get. And now that's what it means with the random number parameters. So that first parameter is the minimum. The second parameter is the maximum. We reset. Okay, we kind of have some smaller eyes. We have some bigger eyes, and we can do it a few times and get really large, really small, and probably somewhere in between. All right, level 5, we are working with some more petals. Again, that petal size comes in really handy, and we're really going to see the value of using variables here. We've got 2 different flowers. We want to update the first flower's petals to be a random size. All right, so to do that, we're going to update petal size right here to a random number. All right, right now that first one is set at 30, so we can kind of see the size of 30. Maybe we want to make it a little bit smaller than 30, so maybe we want to go 25 to about 125. Okay. So we updated the parameters there, and then it says update the second flower's petals to be a random size as well. So what we're gonna do is we are actually going to copy this line of code. I'm going to highlight it and collect it. You could also drag random number right here, but I just like to show copying and pasting sometimes is nice. And I'm going to do the exact same random number. Sometimes it might be similar, sometimes it might be different, but remember the order of the code matters. So we create a variable called petal size. We get a green background. Petal size then updates a value something between 25 and 125. We then draw these purple petals that get whatever random number was assigned here. We continue on, we draw the center, then we update petal size again. It gets a new random number between 25 and 125. We then draw the petals for the second flower. So if we reset and run, you notice they are different sizes, and sometimes they may be almost the same. Sometimes they're going to be very different, but you should see a variation in the size of the petals. Obviously, if you feel like 125 is too big, you could change it. If you feel like 25 is too small, you could change it, but you get the idea. Okay, practice with random numbers. So we're going to walk through practice A. All right, and we're going to jump in. For time's sake, I'm just going to sort of show you what I've done already and kind of walk through it. So this one says update each planet to be a random size. Actually, I did not do that already, so that'll be good. So right now we've just got those random numbers. If I look at the example, it's kind of smushing it. I don't necessarily want weird shaped planets. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just make a variable at the top of my program. I'm going to call it size. And I'm going to start it out with a random number between 25 and 100. Okay? Next thing I'm going to do is for each one of these circles, I'm going to change the width and the height to size. And we're going to do a couple of versions of this as we go. So the first time I do this, I will get a random size, but all of my planets will be the same size. So if I reset and run now, okay, can't really tell a difference. Now they're all larger. So I want them to be different. So what I have to do, and this is where copying and pasting is really nice, I create the variable size right here, and I will leave it with that first fill with the yellow. What I'm going to do is I'm then going to go above every other ellipse besides the yellow one, and I'm going to start right here with the salmon. I'm going to say size, and it's going to get a random number. And I'm going to use the same range. I'm still going to use 25 to 100, but each time this is called, it's the probability of getting the same values, not great, it may be close, and we may not always be able to tell a difference. I'm then going to copy that and move down, and above each additional ellipse, I'm going to paste it so that each time it pulls a random value. And I've got one more spot. So now when I reset and run, I've got different size. Now again, you'll see some of them are very close in size, and I might have there we go. So you should see some variation, reset and run a few times, and you'll notice that random pattern. I like doing it that way better because nobody's ever seen a planet that looks like a really smushed cartoon character. So that way they're still mostly circular, but you do have the variation. All right. If you wanted to do it differently, you could give each one, you could have a width variable and a height variable. Do the same thing, you're just doubling up. So everywhere right here where I have that first size, those would all be width. And then you would have height for each one of the last parameter. And then each time you update, you have to update both variables. That just gets a little heavy and it doesn't look great. So we're going to leave it like that. All right, we'll continue on now to the debug, the random shape position. All right, the issue with this one, let's run it. Okay, so it is not working as intended. The issue is that we want a random X position for our entire, this kind of looks like a flag. I don't know that it's a flag, but we want them to be lined up, just shifting across. If I give each one a different random number, this is what's going to happen. So what I need to do is just move that random number right there, and then get rid of those random numbers and call the variable X position for each rectangle. And I want to be very careful that I spell it in my capitalizations. It is case sensitive. All right, and I don't see any yellow. So now when I reset and run, all right, it may slide over a little bit. It's not really given. There we go. So we see it jump a little bit there. All right, but it's in line. So the trick with that one, make your random number assigned to the variable, give each one the same variable so that whatever this random number is, they all get the same X position. So it will change and slide, but they'll be lined up. All right, challenge C. All right, we want to randomize the scene. So again, what we could do with this one, obviously for the yellow sun, we could just give, it looks like it's kind of moving a little bit Y, a little bit X. So with this one, we don't really need to use variables. We can just use random number. So I'm going to give the sun a random X value that goes from 25 to 375 X, and then from about 10 to about 50 for the Y. And I'm going to reset and run, and I should see the sun moving. Okay, to shift my polygons, they are kind of moving in different directions, but again, I think it's mostly the X position. So, and it does say randomize the X position of the mountains. I've got one at 100, 300, 200, 10, 390. So we'll see what happens. I'm going to add in, again, a random value, and I'm going to go from 50 to 350 is what I'm going to choose to do. And I'm going to do that for each one. That might be a bit much. It would probably be better. Actually, let me change that. I'm going to Control Z. We're going to keep this a little bit more simple. I'm going to look at what was there originally. So 100. I'm just going to give a slight variation on each one instead. So I'm going to do 10 above, 10 after. So instead of 100, I'll do 90 to 110. This one is 300. I'll do a little bit more variation. I'll go 280 to 320. So I'm kind of basing it off of where it is originally. This one is 200, so I'll go 180 to 220. This one was at 10. Can't really go negative on that one, so we'll just go 0 to 25. Change it up a little bit. And then this one is 390, so we'll go 365, just changing it up a little bit, to 395. All right, and now when I reset and run, I should see a little bit of shifting. Obviously, I could add more variation for the smaller ones, but you get the general idea. So what you'd want to do is just play around with these values to make it more or less dramatic in the way they move around. So you're not going to see a huge difference in these shifts, but you do see it moving slightly. All right, so that finishes our practices. We're going to go to the assessment. All right, we've got the good old rainbow snake. This one's been around for years. So we just start out with 3. We want to try to match it up. So each one's getting a random number. This is where I love the good old copy and paste and finding a pattern. I've got my sky blue background. I've got the red circle, the orange circle, the yellow circle. Each one, if you notice, is 40 units to the right of the previous. So I'm just going to look up and see, okay, I've got green, blue, and purple. I'm just going to copy my good friend yellow here. I'm going to do a Control C, and then I'm going to paste. I'm going to change that to green, I'm going to come back to that in a moment. I'm going to change this one to blue, and I'm going to paste one more time. And let me do this. And I'm going to change this to purple. So that gets my colors, and then I'm going to go back. So yellow is at 180. I'm going to go up to 220, to 260, and to 300. Keeping that with that pattern. Everything else the same, give it some variation. I reset and run, and there I have my rainbow snake. It's gonna slightly shift each time, and that is all there is to it. So make copy and pasting your friend. It makes it a lot quicker there. All right, for the challenges, this can get a little heavy. I'm just gonna do this first challenge, practicing a little bit with the random RGB. I've already done this one. I did this one a little bit differently. Excuse me. Actually, I did not update it, so I guess I'll have to fix that. I thought I'd done this one. If I go to version history, let me see if I can restore it. Let's restore an old one. Well, that one didn't update either, did it? Those are still gonna. Okay, so we'll walk through it. So my background, if I want to make these true random, you could get really nitpicky and look at the shades and vary just the shades. I like to just go all out random, and it makes it easier. And I'm going to use a combination of variables and random numbers. So I'm going to create a variable called R. It is going to get a random value between 0 and 255. I'm going to create, notice I'm using the VAR because I'm creating the variable called G. It's going to get a random number between 0 and 255. Why am I doing that? Because again, that's the RGB triplet for color. It can have a value between 0 and 255, so that's why I'm using that for the random numbers. I'm going to do one more variable. I'm going to call it B for blue. It also will get a random number from 0 to 255. Now, when I draw my background, I'm going to do R, G, B. Those little yellow triangles go away because I've now used them. And when I reset and run, my background will change each time to a different color. All right. Now, if you want to do that just for the background and your grass, you could stop there, but why stop there? Again, I could change this. I could update. So now that I've created the variables, I'm just going to update R. I'm going to update G. And I'm going to update B. So I'm not creating them. I am going to give them each a random number. And each one will be from 0 to 255. And then I can change that to RGB. Reset run. So now my grass and my sky are going to be random colors. Sometimes it really works. Sometimes it's a little crazy. All right. Now this chunk of code, I am going to copy. And above every single fill, I'm going to paste that. So I'm going to paste it above every single fill. So I just have to kind of be careful and go down. And there are a lot of them. But this really simplifies the process. I've got one more to go. And now I'm going to go back to each fill and change the values to R, G, B. All right, and it takes a moment, but now hopefully you can see the value of using variables to speed things up. Otherwise, we'd have to insert all these random numbers in each one all the way through. That would take forever. This allows us to copy and paste a little bit, use those variables, keep it similar, but yet different. Alrighty, we think we've got one more. So each drawing will have a different random color. So now we get some really kind of psychedelic looking stuff sometimes. So this one is kind of cool. Sometimes it's really bland, sometimes it's really fluorescent looking, so you'll see all sorts of different shades. So that completes that challenge. If anybody wants to see additional challenges, just reach out, let me know. I'll be happy to walk through those, but for time's sake, that first challenge is usually good enough. We will stop there.